học để khẳng định mình.
Hello everybody, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed the first lesson and that you weren't sitting at home thinking, oh my god, hiểu chết liền. I hope that this video will be even easier for you to understand, and I hope that you see that with time, listening to English and listening to a native speaker speak English will become easier and easier, I promise you. So don't give up, okay? Cố lên nhá, okay? So to introduce this video, I want to talk a little bit about the last video and a couple of concerns that I have, as well as the concerns that you have. The first concern is the issue of subtitles, okay? A lot of students, well, not too many, but some students have said that Bren ơi, Việt sub nha, nhưng mà nếu các bạn muốn học tiếng Anh, tại sao các bạn muốn đọc Việt sub? If you use Viet subs, you aren't practicing English. You are just going to continue the same bad habits that have led you to feel uncomfortable with English. So I am going to write English subtitles for the videos. And when you don't understand a word, you will be able to find that word and translate it into Vietnamese the first time only. After that, you should be able to start thinking in English. Train yourself to think in English, okay? And the second concern I had was with IPA transcription. I just wanted to mention that sometimes what you find in the dictionary will be slightly different than the way that I pronounce things, okay? And this is because of what's called dialect variation, okay? So let me write that here. Dialect, okay? Dialect variation, okay? This word variation just is a noun for change, okay? It's a fancy word. You could say dialect change, okay? A dialect is just the way that somebody pronounces the words in their language, okay? So let me give you an example. If we take the word water, okay? If we have a word like water, okay? There's a difference between British and American pronunciation, okay? British people tend to speak, it seems to Americans to be very proper. So for example, hello sir, would you get me some water? Water. Okay, so if you listen to that water, it's a very strong T sound. Okay, so in IPA, that might be written something like this. Wa. Okay, that's the aw. Okay. And in the dictionary, sometimes you might see the R placed up here on the schwa. It's not very important. The reason why I'm using this is to help you listen to every sound in a word and help you think about the way that the word is pronounced, okay? So this would be British English, okay? Okay. And now, the way that I would say it, and this can even change between Americans, okay? America is a very, very, very big country. So if you go to my state, people may speak a little bit differently than they speak in a state further down south, like Georgia or Texas, for example, okay? So an American might say something like water, okay, with a D sound. Water, okay? And actually, I'm going to talk about this sound a little bit more today because it's not really a D and it's not really a T. It's what's called a flap, okay? a flap. And the symbol looks like this, okay? So we might actually be able to, well, not might, definitely, we could write it like this, okay? And this would be more accurate for how the sound is actually pronounced. What a flap is, okay? Your tongue is just lifting up very quickly, just water, water. And it's touching the area of your mouth behind your teeth, okay? And that was about it for IPA. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the approach for studying English, okay? So I mentioned this a little bit before, and if you added me on Facebook, you may have seen my long status that I wrote in Vietnamese. I was giving some examples of how I learned Vietnamese, and I'm able to go out in the street and communicate with anybody in Vietnam, and so I want you to be able to do the same thing in English. If you have been studying English for 5, 6, 7 years, you should at least be able to have some basic communication ability. So if you don't feel comfortable with English yet, after even 2 years of study, you should try to change your approach to language learning, okay? So what I did when I learned a new Vietnamese word was that I translated it to English one time only to understand the idea. And after that, I tried to think only in Vietnamese. So you should do the same with English. So for example, let's say you don't know the word experience, okay? This word experience. Okay? So for example, let's say that you have never ever heard this word or seen this word. So how to approach learning this word is you open up a dictionary and you find that it's, I believe it's a Y, okay? So something like this, right? Kỷ niệm, is that right? Anyways, the idea is that you translate it one time, just one time, to understand the idea. And after that, you want to repeat the English word to yourself. Okay, so experience, experience, experience. Get it in your head. Don't think about Vietnamese anymore. Think about English. Think about the idea, okay? If it's a noun, think about the object, okay? So if I said dog, your first thought should not be con chó. Your first thought should be a picture of a dog. You should think of a dog when you hear dog. This is why a lot of people have trouble with listening to English, because they're trying to translate every single word as they hear it. And that's impossible. There's no way that you are going to be able to keep up with the rate of an English speaker. English speakers are not going to speak as slowly as I am speaking now, okay? They're probably going to talk something like this, maybe even a little bit faster, okay? So I'm trying to slow down a little bit for you because I know that things are still difficult and you're still practicing listening. So try to think about this idea more. And when you learn new words in English, think about the idea, okay? Don't think about Vietnamese. You're learning English here, so you need to think like an English speaker. You need to think in the language that you're learning, okay? Another thing is that I really encourage you to do is to find a way to make learning fun, okay? When I started learning Vietnamese, one of the ways that I learned was to listen to Bằng Q, Just a T, Santum MTP, Hank Sino, Big Daddy, and I would listen to the song and read the lyrics in Vietnamese and try to translate it or find new words, and this made learning fun for me. Another way that this helped me is that every time I listened to it and I sang along or I rapped, nóng bức cho nên chóng tức, I would be listening to the lyrics and I would be speaking the same way every time, practicing the accent, practicing pronunciation, and this helped me a lot to be able to develop clarity or rõ ràng, to be clear with my speech so that people could understand me. Okay? The last thing that I want to mention in this little introduction before I move on to the content of this lesson is that another thing that I did was I would look around my room, okay? And I would think about certain objects, okay? So I'm seeing a clock right here. And I would think, do I know how to say this in Vietnamese? And if not, I would ask somebody. I would bother my friend. My roommate probably hated me when I started learning Vietnamese because I would always say, clock, tiếng Việt là gì? Or couch, tiếng Việt là gì? I was just, tiếng Việt là gì? Tiếng Việt là gì? Tiếng Việt là gì? Over and over and over again, trying to learn new words to describe things around my environment that I didn't know how to say yet. And so this is a great way for people at home that don't know, where do I start learning English? It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is that you are learning something. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be, you have to learn how to introduce your family, then you have to learn how to talk about work. It doesn't have to be like that. You can learn whatever you want in English, okay? As long as you're learning something. So for example, in Vietnamese, I knew how to say the word, or I knew the phrase, phi công trẻ lái máy bay bà già, before I knew how to say cửa sổ, okay? So don't worry about what you're learning. Just worry about learning, okay?